How to become totally self-insured in 20 years or less. In this video episode, I'm going to explain why a max-funded tax advantage indexed universal life insurance policy is a superior way to buy term and invest the difference. You're going to get some huge epiphanies. So, I'm Doug Andrew. I've been a financial strategist and retirement planning specialist now for north of 48 years, helping many Americans optimize their assets and minimize taxes. If you've watched very many of these episodes on my three-dimensional wealth channel, you will quickly realize that one of my favorite financial vehicles is a max-funded indexed universal life insurance policy that allows a person to accumulate their money totally income tax-free, then be able to access that money income tax-free anytime, not just waiting until retirement or after age 59 and a half. Many business owners use these for working capital for their business. But at the end of the day, when you finally pass away, a max-funded indexed universal life still blossoms, increases in value, and transfers income tax-free. There is nothing else that does that in the Internal Revenue Code that I'm aware of, and I have taught many CPAs and tax attorneys advanced continuing education about these. They are found in the Internal Revenue Code, Section 72E, 7702, and 101A, and they sit there with their mouths open, and I've never had a single CPA or tax attorney show me anywhere else in the Internal Revenue Code an instrument that does that. So, when you structure an IUL policy correctly and fund it properly, it qualifies to be called what I call a laser fund. Laser is an acronym that I use that stands for Liquid Asset Safely Earning Returns. I want you to stay with me to the end of this episode. I want to gift you a copy of my 11th book called The Laser Fund. It's a 300-page book that I will gift you absolutely free. So stay with me. So let's talk about why this is a superior way to buy term and invest the difference. Let's go back to 1974 when I first started. Back in 1974, I'm an old geezer. I got my Series 1 securities license and also my insurance license as a means to sell insurance and invest people's money into mutual funds. Buy term and invest the difference to get myself through college and law school. And I fell in love with doing this. And so I talked to many estate planning attorneys and they said, golly, if we had to do it over again, we'd do what you're doing, Doug. And so I loved it so much, I stayed with it and I've never regretted it. So in 1974, I was one of the country's biggest proponents of buy term insurance and invest the difference, okay? Because I did a lot of studies of how this would knock the socks off of a whole life policy if you did invest the difference. The biggest problem is that a lot of people would buy term insurance and then spend the difference. They would not invest the difference. And so, you know, whole life insurance agents would say, well, at least whole life forces you to invest the difference, even though the rate of return was only 2.5%, 3.5% off times. But it was tax-free. But I knew that I could probably do better if I invested the difference into mutual funds, especially if they could earn more like 9, 10, 11, or 12%. Even after tax, I outperformed the whole life. So I went out and frankly, from 1974 until 1980, I ended up being responsible for over 3,000 clients in 13 Western states. And then what happened in 1980, a defining moment. This is when E.F. Hutton, who was not an insurance company, they were a brokerage firm, and they said, wait a minute, we're trying to average 12%, which sometimes is hard to do with money invested in a volatile stock market. But even if we could average 12%, E.F. Hutton said, hey, let's say that we accumulate $1 million in the stock market for somebody. And if we could average 12% during retirement, which we are nervous about because sometimes the market may drop 20, 30, 40%. People want predictable income. And Wall Street was never designed to actually sell your mutual fund shares. When you ask Wall Street, when's the best time to sell our shares or our stocks, they will say never. And so E.F. Hutton said, golly, for retirees, we need to have something more safe and predictable. What about the multi-trillion-dollar insurance industry? It is not only the backbone of America, but the backbone of the world. They're some of the best money managers in the world. And so they came up with the idea of using a max-funded insurance policy where you take the least amount of life insurance that the IRS will let you get away with, and you put in the most money or the most premium the IRS allows. It was like the reverse of what most people would do. When you buy term and invest the difference, you want the amount of life insurance that you want for the cheapest premium. They sort of flipped that on its end. They said, hey, let's take the least amount of insurance we can get away with and put in the most premium, and this thing will turn into a cash cow. Let's take 100% of the money and take the least amount of insurance. Well, I saw this immediately and realized, wow, this is buy term, invest the difference under a tax-free umbrella. And back then, interest rates were high. I never got credited less than 11.75% from 1980 to 1990. I got credited as high as 15.5%. Let's just take it down to 11. But I had many, many clients back in 1980, 81, 82. In fact, those 3,000 clients I got out of the stock market were never happier because they didn't lose money again due to market downturns. And so they would put in, let's say, $500,000. Now, you could put in $50,000, $10,000, $5 million, but let's use $500,000 as an example. I had clients putting in $500,000 into a universal life policy. In 1980, they were earning, let's round it down to 11, and they were netting 10. Yep. The cost of insurance was only 1% of the 11%. One of those percentage points, they were netting cash on their $500,000, 10%. And so they were pulling out $50,000 a year. Many of them wanted income immediately and was tax-free. They put in $500,000. They were pulling out $50,000 a year of tax-free income. In fact, they've been doing it, many of them, ever since. So that was the magic behind taking the least amount of life insurance. If you were a 60-year-old and you wanted to put in $500,000, the amount of insurance now is about double that, about $1 million. And as you put in the $500,000, now you have to spread it out over 5 years. But once you have that $500,000 in there, the net amount at risk is half what it originally was. See, when you had $1 million death benefit and you first started, every time you put in money, $100,000 a year for the first 5 years, the amount at risk to the insurance company became less because your cash, the premiums you're paying in, the cash value, now qualifies as part of that $1 million. So when you have $500,000 in there within 4 years and 1 day, technically, then the net amount of risk is half of the million, or only $500,000. The insurance company is only charging you for the net amount at risk. That $500,000 many times would double in 7.5 years because they were averaging, 9.6% like I've averaged for 42 years. Your money doubles every 7.5 years. So 500,000 doubles to $1 million by the 12.5 year into the policy, 12.5 years. And now your cash value equals the original death benefit. So technically you're self-insured. You were able to accomplish that in this example in 12.5 years. So you're really not having to pay for any in life insurance. But Teffer and Differ says if you want it to continue to grow tax-free, the life insurance death benefit has to stay 5 percentage points ahead of it. So if you died in 12.5 years, the $1 million life insurance policy would pay out $1,050,000. If the million doubles to 2 million in another 7.5 years, the death benefit would be 2.1 million. But the insurance company is only charging you for the remaining 100,000. This is how the cost of the insurance goes down as you get older, and I have an episode that explains that. What I'm talking about here is when we hear proponents, like I used to be, and today, you have the Susie Ormans and the Dave Ramseys that still talk about buy term, invest the difference. Well, that's what IUL is, and they don't even realize it. Indexed Universal Life is simply buy term, invest the difference tax-free. That is what E.F. Hutton really came up with. I saw that immediately. I'm shocked how many advisors do not understand that maximum funded indexed universal life is like buy term, invest the difference on steroids. So it simply means this. I put in the money, the premiums, and they begin to grow tax-free. At 9.6% average rate of return, your money doubles every 7.5 years. We've had clients that put in 500,000, or when they got 500,000 in there, it doubled to $1 million in 7.5 years. $1 million doubled to $2 million in another 7.5 years. Okay. So it's worth $2 million in the 15th year from when it was 500. In another 7.5 years, it's worth $4 million, another 7.5 years. So in the 30th year, it's now worth $8 million. Yeah. We have people that started, their insurance policies 35 years ago with 500,000, and it's worth $8 million now. And they're able to generate 600,000 to 800,000 a year of tax-free income and an 8 to a 10% payout without depleting principal, totally tax-free. We have one couple, that's the only income they have. They don't even need that much. They say, Doug, we only need 300,000 of income because we don't even pay any taxes on that. The IRS knows they're receiving it, but so the other $500,000 they're earning in interest just stays in the policy and keeps growing to hedge against inflation. That's the kind of retirement a lot of people want. But the point is this, they were buying term insurance because there's term insurance or a term component in whole life, in universal life. That's basically term insurance in there. And if you buy term and invest the difference under a tax-free umbrella, that's incredible. That's all E.F. Hutton came up with. Yeah, let's buy term and invest the difference, but let's do it tax-free. And when you do it correctly, it's like buy term, invest the difference on steroids. So many times I will see advisors like Dave Ramsey that'll say, if you buy term and invest the difference, you can take out a 20-year or a 30-year term, and then you can sort of be self-insured. Yeah, you'll save enough money investing the difference in 30 years where you can get rid of your life insurance. Yeah, it's interesting how many 60-year-olds and 70-year-olds are buying more life insurance than ever at that age because, hello, it protects their money, it's tax-free and so forth. The average person who takes out indexed universal life is between ages 55 and age 75. Did you know that? Why? It's because they're using it for living benefits. But if you were to go back and use that idea, buy term, invest the difference, and in 30 years, you'll have the money to give up the life insurance, and the survivors you leave behind if you happen to die will not have that many more years where they will need income, so you can get rid of the life insurance. Well, I can become self-insured, and I don't have to take 30 years with IUL. I've had many people who have had their cash value equal or exceed their death benefit within 12.5 years, within 15 years, within 17.5 years. By the 20th year, their cash value is far in excess of the original death benefit. The insurance is costing 1/20th what it did 20 years earlier. They have actually accomplished the goal of giving up or being self-insured 10 years faster than buy term, invest the difference proponents project. If you want to learn more about how to do this, there's an entire chapter that talks about it in this book called The Laser Fund. Now, if you go to Amazon, you can pay $20 for this book, but I want to gift you a copy. Absolutely free. It's 300 pages of information, but it's actually 2 books in one. You can claim your free copy by simply going to laserfund, L-E-S-E-R, fund.com, or click on the link below. You contribute a nominal amount towards the shipping and handling. I'll cover the rest of that cost, and I'll pay for the book. I'll fire out a hard copy to you. This side is about 200 pages with all the charts and graphs and explanations. If you learn more right brain by stories, you flip it over and read this one. This is about 100 pages, 12 chapters with 62 actual client stories. And so I want you to learn whether you're left brain or right brain. And you can do that by going to the website laserfund.com. But while you're in there, there's options there to listen and learn, watch and learn. You can check out some of the online educational webinars we do on a regular basis. And you can even set up an appointment to talk to an IUL specialist at no cost or obligation to you. to see how a laser fund can be a buy-term invest the difference under a tax-free strategy, far smarter than doing it the way buy-term invest the difference proponents talk about. This is about you and saving money and optimizing your assets and minimizing taxes and redirecting otherwise payable tax to causes you support, including paying for your life insurance by redirecting a nominal amount of the interest you're earning for that insurance. Watch other educational episodes on this channel to gain further insights.